Happy Sunday evening, friends. It's so good to have you with me. Father Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. Alveda King is part of our team, and I know that some of you are watching on her channels. And we have many platforms that we broadcast this on every morning, every afternoon, every night. And it's great to have you with us each day. We are coming into a very intense period now, this last week and 2 days before the completion of elections 2020, and we hope conclusion on Tuesday night, November 3rd, without shenanigans. What we're looking for, of course, is such an overwhelming victory that even with missing ballots and, there's so many days still we have left to count the ballots. Look, here's how we solve this ultimately. There are court battles going on. There are some mistakes being made. There are other victories being won. But there's one easy solution to this, that the margin of victory for our president and for our other pro-life candidates is so overwhelming, so big, that the people in these states where there still might be questions say, well, there aren't even enough people in the state to make up for the difference. That's how we win decisively and avoid an entanglement of our country in all kinds of anxiety and battles and tensions in the days after the election. We don't need that. What we need to avoid that is everything that we've been saying all along. We're going to pray about that now, and then we're going to talk to you about a number of things, and it also will always invite your questions and comments. But the solution to this is what we've been saying all along, that you and I and everyone within our circles of influence mobilize so many voters that we get them, talk to them, go through our lists of contacts, mobilize them, encourage them, inspire them, inform them, and help them to get to the polls. And let's get as many of the right kinds of votes out there as possible. Alveda says to you exactly the same thing. She's on with me, both on this channel of hers and on our other channels, and she is on fire for the very same thing. Well, let's start with a prayer. My book, Pro-Life Reflections for Every Day, gives us a reflection and a prayer for every day. It starts today with a quote from a bishop, a Vatican bishop, some years ago, Bishop Karl Romer, from the Pontifical Council for the Family. Here's what he said. Every man has the obligation to vote, because by voting, he can determine who will make tomorrow's laws, either to be unjust and perverse or to promote human values. God himself asks that every Christian make his contribution by voting. Reflection. Everything we can say about the tremendous responsibility of those who craft legislation and put it into effect really reflects the moral responsibility of those who put them in those positions in the first place, namely we, the voters. Let us pray. Lord, may we use wisely the freedom to elect our lawmakers. Amen. ProLifeReflectionsForEveryday.com is where you can get this book, and I'll be happy to personalize it for you. Now, progress today on the confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett, our great senators, on the Republican side anyway. We're working hard over the weekend, and we're going to talk about that. I want to give you some details about that. I want to show you a little bit of the shenanigans that the Democrat side was trying to play, but unfortunately for them, they're not getting away with it. So I'm going to talk to you about, in some detail, the progress made today in the Senate. But I want to start out by looking at our energetic president, who has been rallying, and this is only going to intensify in the days to come. He has been conducting various rallies. He had 3 of them yesterday, 3 rallies. And I don't know if you saw any of them. We follow them. We broadcast them here. Really, I want to urge you to watch them. Watch as many of them as you can. I try to watch all of them. A lot of them I'm able to. Some of them I'm able to be at in person, like I was day before yesterday here in Florida. But yes, the president is hopping around the country. He was in Ohio, Wisconsin yesterday, and today he was up in New Hampshire, had a midday rally up there in Manchester. Now tomorrow he's going to focus on Pennsylvania. And again, we will cover these rallies right here on these stations, on these platforms. He's going to be, let me see here, 11 a.m., Allentown, Pennsylvania. Now, some of you might be from some of these places. I don't know, some of you may also be going to these rallies. Hey, Bobby is saying, I saw all three of them yesterday. Praise the Lord. Cheryl, you would have been at the Manchester one today. Oh, you hurt your back. I hope you're better. I'm going to send you a special blessing right now. The Holy Spirit heal your back and strengthen you and get you back to normal. We need you out there. But yes, some of you might be going to these. Let me know. Allentown, Pennsylvania at 11 a.m. Then he's going over to Lititz. I hope I'm saying that right. Lititz, Pennsylvania. I don't know how far that is from Allentown. And then Martinsburg, Pennsylvania at 4. Lititz is at 1:30 in the afternoon. And Martinsburg, Pennsylvania at 4:30 in the afternoon. All of that tomorrow. Daytime rallies. Now, I'm going to go over to the board here. We'll go back and forth like we sometimes do. And I want to show you some contrasting statements of our president and his opponent, Sleepy Joe. Really sleepy compared to... He put another lid on today. You know the lid? It's like, hey, you're not going to hear from me anymore today? What's up with this? You're supposed to be campaigning in the final days of the election for the highest office in the land, and you just sit back at home? Any Biden supporters out there want to explain that? In any case, there's a big difference between the thing, and you heard this in the debate, which the vast majority of people thought that President Trump won that debate. It certainly helped him in this election. But look, we have a president saying, and he says this in the states too, especially these Democrat governors that have their states locked down. The president is going into these places and he's saying you got to open it up. Pennsylvania, Michigan, North Carolina, open it up. Open up the state, open up. Why? Because we have to live our lives. Now, I think it was in one of these evening broadcasts, maybe it was in one of our morning broadcasts recently, I was comparing our response to the pandemic to our response to 9/11. Look, it was a terrible, terrible day then, September 11th of 2001. Our country was attacked by these violent Islamic fundamentalist extremists, and life changed for us. I was in New York City that day. Some of you were no doubt in some of the actual cities that got attacked, and all of us were involved in it equally as Americans. In fact, our brothers and sisters from around the world, we were all united that day. But life changed. Security measures were put into place, not only in the airports, but in many other places. We live our lives now at a higher state of awareness of the potential for terrorist attacks. But we didn't close everything up and go down into our basements and stop living life. I mean, if you go out into a mall, if you go out into any kind of public place, if you go on an airplane, I mean, we didn't stop getting on airplanes. We didn't stop going to the malls. We know that there's always an outside chance that there's going to be some bombing or shooting or terrorist activity. But you know what? We don't let the terrorists rule our lives. That's the point. We don't get crippled with fear. Yes, we take cautions. Yes, life changes. Yes, we have to be more alert and more attentive. Yes, we have to get into new habits. But the point is we've gotten into new habits and we continue to live our lives as Americans, just as we would expect and urge people of all other countries to live their lives as citizens of their country, as free men and women. And so, listen, we need the same mindset. We see coming from the president the very same mindset when it comes to this pandemic. Yes, it changed life. Yes, we learn a lot of new things. Yes, now we take extra precautions, extra safety precautions. We're not going to always have to have the same safety precautions forever, Because remember, when this virus broke, we didn't know anything about it. Nobody was immune to it. There was no vaccine, or we didn't even know the best way to treat it. We didn't know the details of how it spreads. Now, we're in a very different situation right now than we were 7 months ago. A very different situation. We know a lot more about it. And we've got medications to deal with it. And the vaccines will be out soon. Whether people want to use them or not is another story. But you see, the point I'm making is we're not dealing with the same thing with the same level of knowledge. And by the way, I got to say again to those people who want to criticize the president is not responding. This came up at the debate. Neither President Trump nor Joe Biden, nor the tens of thousands of experts who are helping the administration, and for that matter, the people across the globe in all the various countries, close to what was 180 some odd countries that were affected by this, working on it. We were all walking in the dark. How on earth can anyone in his or her right mind put the blame for the people who died on the shoulders of anybody? It's nobody's fault that people died from the virus. Everyone was doing the best that they could with the information that they had, and I would challenge any of these critics of the president to go sit in his seat during one of these pandemics and see how well you do. And see how you feel if somebody blames you for the deaths. The fact of the matter is, it was the medical expert. I was talking with a really, really ridiculous person on LinkedIn. Maybe he's watching. Hi, Joe. His name is Joe. And really ridiculous arguments he was making against Trump. And here he was, again, these people that are critics of the president, they just throw out these lies and they just dismiss things, off the top of their head. They're so arrogant and so uninformed and so shallow. And so this guy I was telling him, hey, listen, the medical experts told us, there could have been, if we didn't do anything, 2 million people could have died. Dr. Deborah Birx said, under the best of conditions, if you do everything perfectly, we'll probably end up with about 200,000 people dying. And that was, of course, approximately where we are now, a little bit more than that. And then this guy Joe says, oh yeah, well, President Trump just made up that statistic. I think Joe spends too much time in his basement like the other Joe does. Because you can't say something like that if your eyes have been half open and you've been looking at everything that's been going on these last 7 months. The president stood there in the briefing room at the White House with the vice president, with the head of the infectious diseases and the head of the CDC and the HHS and all these different experts and doctors and surgeons and infectious disease experts and again, tens of thousands of people behind the scenes to say something so stupid as, oh, well, the president just made that up. I mean, what kind of a view of life does a person have to even say something like that? These statistics, these projections, these estimates come from the experts. The reason the president would say anything like this is because he, as the president of the United States, is the recipient of all this expert advice and information and input from others. Don't these people know how this stuff works? I'm telling you. So in any case, the point I'm making is let's make a distinction here between President Trump saying, open up, live our lives, and Joe Biden saying, lock it down. Basement Joe, Basement Biden, lock it down. He wants to put us back. Let's go back where we were. Remember Easter? Remember how strange it was this year during Holy Week and Easter? You want to go back to that? Everything's closed up. Everything's boarded up. No traffic on the streets. Every single business closed. Ghost town. Biden wants us to go back to a ghost town. Why? Because we don't know anything more about the disease now than we did before? Because we don't pay any attention to the, like the president mentioned, his son, Barron, tested positive, and then, within 15 minutes, hey, he's good, he's okay again. But that counts as a case in the statistics. Oh, there's so many cases of infection, so many cases. Barron, Trump was a case. He was fine. And a lot of people are just fine. And then if they're not fine for a little while and they get fine. We're not minimizing those who are seriously ill, hospitalized, those who die. Nobody's minimizing that. Nobody minimizes that for any kind of disease, any kind of sickness, any kind of danger we might be in. But we live our lives is the point. We live our lives. We can't go with this Biden lock it down. You know, again, another, you heard the debate the other night. The president said, we're learning to live with it. You know, that's a very mature statement. Because that's what you teach your children if you have children. That's what you teach your children all the time. That's what you who are teachers teach your students. Maturing, growing up in life, means dealing with all kinds of things that you learn to live with. Living and surviving means adapting. It means changing. Just like we changed after 9/11, we changed after the pandemic. Certain changes will continue. I think everybody knows a whole lot better than we ever did how to wash our hands effectively. That's good. That can only help with everything. But we have, of course, we're learning to live with. That's a very positive and realistic statement and essential for life. We're learning to live with it. The idiot Biden says, you remember what he said? It's disgraceful. I don't know what's wrong with these people. We're learning to die with it. You know what, Joe? Go back in the base. You know what? It's good that you're not on the campaign trail because, honest to God, we don't want to hear from you anymore. We really don't. I don't know about you, friends, but I don't want to hear the guy anymore. We're learning to die with it. What kind of... and here's another contrast. Let's put the contrast here, okay? The red is Trump, right? President Trump. I'm going to put his sentence on there last. So another thing that Biden said, the black is for Biden, for B, okay. Here's another thing that B said. There are dark days ahead. There are dark days ahead. We have a visitor by the name of Anthony Carlo. Anthony, say it with me, okay? There are dark days ahead. I think he likes those words. There are dark days ahead. You know what President Trump says? You tell me if you like this better. He says, my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. He's right. Because that's the spirit that built this country. To be able to say the best is yet to come, to be able to look ahead, to be able to look in the face of any enemy, of any obstacle, of any problem, and to say, we will conquer. To be able to look at the vast unexplored territory that has become the United States of America, and to say, we will conquer. No matter how many mountains are out there, we'll climb them. No matter how many obstacles are out there, we'll overcome them. We will conquer. This is the best, which is yet to come. The best days of America, because we're going to have economic prosperity, because we're going to have the efforts that have been already put into the building of this economy. And that's why we've had the smallest contraction and the quickest expansion and recovery of any of the 180 some odd nations that have been affected by this virus. Why? Because our economy was so great and so strong to begin with. The best is yet to come on every level. So you have really here, and you saw it in the conventions over the summer, my friends, and you know, it's important to point this out to undecided voters at this point, however many there may be. I think there are fewer now, this time around. In fact, I know that there are fewer this time around of undecided voters than there have ever been in American political history. There are also going to be more people voting in this election than there have been in any presidential race in American history. We've also broke a record in 2016 of more people voting than ever before. This time we could get somewhere up around 155, 160 million. We'll see what happens. Of course, you can influence what that's going to be. But look, you saw it with the conventions, you see it here, this positive, optimistic attitude of President Trump. Let's open up. Let's live our lives. We're learning to live with it. The best is yet to come. And the Democrats, led by Biden, lock it down. We're learning to die with it. There are dark days ahead. Which one do you want? Which attitude do you think is better to have for yourself and to pass on for your children? Which one do you want? My goodness. All right, so let me, before I talk about the Supreme Court, and I want to talk to you about the progress that was made today in the process for getting Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court, I want to do something that I do every once in a while, and those of you who are new, let me just explain this for a moment. Every once in a while, because our work depends on all of you supporting us, working with us. Some of you contribute to us. You participate in our projects. And so I always look to be completely transparent and accountable to you. So I want to kind of sort of give you an idea of what my day was like today, and just show you that we are working like crazy with you and for you. President, of course, says the same thing. That's his spirit too. I am working for you, the American people, and I will not stop working for you. And I really feel the same way, exactly the same way. So today, my day started at about 4:30. And I live at my office. I don't mean I have a home office, that my office is in my home. I mean the other way around. I actually live here at my office. And so I get up and I go right to my desk, pray of course, and I was at my desk just a little after 4:30. I was still in my pajamas actually. I worked for a couple hours, then got dressed, worked for a couple more hours, and then had breakfast. But what did I do? What was I doing at that time in the morning? Well, first of all, I had to get ready. It's a morning. I guess many of you find the same thing. I want to take you on a little trip here through my day. I'm sure many of you find the same thing. It's a good time to write. Are any of you writers? You know, you have to write articles. I have to write a lot of articles. Op-eds that get published in various publications. I had one recently in Town Hall, Life News, lifenews.com. Many of you in the pro-life movement read that. So I wrote, about 4 different columns earlier this morning and sent them out via email to their destination. I was in contact with some pro-life activists in Pennsylvania, a key state. Oh, I had to write also the message that I sent out to you guys via email, those of you who get our emails. And if you don't get our emails, check prolifevote.com. You can sign up for them. Had to write the daily challenge for today, the daily election challenge. And I also did, before breakfast, a couple of early morning broadcasts. I'll go on my iPhone, I don't have it right here, onto a couple of different platforms and just do a direct video message. So I did one of those before breakfast. Had a quick breakfast, Thomas's English muffins, and then went back to my desk, and I had to get ready for the second morning broadcast, which was for the daily challenge, the daily election challenge. So I came in here, I did that brief broadcast. Some of you may have seen it this morning, and then got ready for the Mass. Got last things together for my homily, did the Mass at 10 a.m. We get a beautiful audience, a beautiful congregation. It's audience because we're thinking of the cameras, but a congregation nationwide and worldwide, preached the Sunday Mass. And right after that, went back to my desk for a couple hours before lunch. I communicated with a big shrine in Pennsylvania that's going to be getting some good election materials to help those voters out there. What did I have to do? Did some work with our website team. They were available to me via email today. We're getting a lot of things in line for the final days of the election. Was in contact with our resource team a little later in the morning and got them ready to fill some orders. We're sending out all these voter guides and things like that. Then I wrote a column for the Legatus magazine. Legatus is an organization of Catholic business owners. Oh, and I wrote a new set of rosary meditations this morning. You're going to be seeing, you might have seen some of them in the email I sent, but today, of course, begins our special election novena. And so I'm writing election-related rosary meditations. I already have pro-life rosary meditations that have been out there in circulation for years, but I wrote some election-related rosary meditations. I also had to write a note from the pastoral director. I serve as the worldwide pastoral director of Rachel's Vineyard, the largest ministry in the world for healing after abortion. And then I wrote also the reflection for the pastoral note for the Silent No More Awareness campaign. I serve as director of that as well. Had to send those out so they get in on time for those emails to go out. Let's see what else. Oh, I had to prepare a radio show, a pre-taped of a radio show for this Tuesday night that we have on Radio Maria. Then I had some lunch. You guys like Kentucky Fried Chicken? I had the Kentucky Fried Chicken for lunch. And then had to get ready. Actually, I got to get ready a couple of other articles, approve a couple of mailings that are going out. Sent a column over to Fox News. Hopefully that'll be accepted for this week. Communicated with a pro-life activist who is writing about a beautiful pro-life statue. We'll show this eventually on our website, of a mom reaching out to her child who had been aborted, receiving the forgiveness of Jesus, receiving the forgiveness of the child, and the father is there. And it shows the beautiful dynamic of the healing of the man, the healing of the father after abortion. Communicated with our broadcast team. Oh, I prepared a 30-second ad. No, Patricia, I actually, thank you. I didn't have any dessert. You know what? Sometimes I have dessert after I do these evening broadcasts. I have a little ice cream or you know what I like? Fig Newtons. You guys like Fig Newtons? So I might probably have a little dessert after this. Then I did this is exciting. And I communicated also with our technology team today about these ads, okay? Yes, let's take Anthony's question in just a second after I get through this schedule. Thank you, Anthony. We're doing these Google ads. And you can micro-target. So we're targeting Pennsylvania undecided voters, Catholics. And we're giving them a message. So I made a powerful 30-second video. We already have Google ads going that send people to websites. But we have going now a video ad. And when you're watching videos on YouTube and before the video starts that you want to watch, some 30-second ad comes in, you got to watch, the video will start after the ad. Well, I'm going to be on some of those videos talking to Catholics in Pennsylvania and some of the other key states too. Every state is key, but some states decide sooner and more reliably than others. That's the only difference. Every state counts in the election. That's the genius of the Electoral College, which the Democrats want to blow up, but good luck about that. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. Then let's see, what else did I do? I prepared more websites. I had to prepare for some postings on the website. I had to communicate with some additional staff. Then I had dinner. Oh, I did a couple of other broadcasts right after dinner, and then got ready. The details of the information I'm sharing with you for this broadcast came in here about 8:45. And here we are, and now we're talking together. All right, so Anthony, appreciate you respectfully asking some questions. Let me ask you this question. Donald Trump used an experimental drug. Yes, but I don't know where you heard that it was created using aborted fetus cells, but it wasn't. Now, how God feels about that is one thing. But how Donald Trump feels about that, I can tell you very clearly. Go back to June of 2019. I'm sure you know this off the top of your head. What did the Department of HHS do? In fact, I'm going to ask you this question. What did the Department of HHS do in June of 2019 in regard to the entire question of using the bodies of aborted babies for medical research and the development of drugs? Combine that question with what does Kamala Harris think of all that? Fact of the matter is that the Department of HHS, under the direction, of course, of the president, stopped the funding of fetal research. Intramural, that means within the government, stop funding anything using the body parts of aborted babies. Extramural, president doesn't change the law. Sorry, Democrat critics, he's not a dictator. He actually respects the divided and distinct roles of the three branches of government. And so deferring to the fact that Congress writes the law, he implemented a process by which an ethical advisory board had to be pulled together to examine research proposals coming from outside groups. And he pulled that together. In fact, recently a report came out, I'm sure you read that as well, that said, reports were sent in, about 14 proposals for research, and all but one of them were rejected. Rejected precisely because of the ethical concern that the president and his team raised about we don't want to use the bodies of aborted babies. So, so that's where he stands on that. And we know that, you want to get into what God thinks about it. Catholic morality teaches that at a certain point, if the cells are no longer fetal cells, if you want to go back decades and there are certain cell lines, the proximity to the original generation of those lines at a certain point becomes distant enough that the moral responsibility also likewise disappears. But you can go to the National Catholic Bioethics Center based in Philadelphia if you want to know more about what Catholic morality says about that in great detail. But fetal cells are not being used for the vaccines that are being developed for the COVID-19 and this is an administration which, contrary to the Democrats, who, you want to know what Kamala Harris thinks, she prosecuted the pro-life people who uncovered more information. We knew it was happening already. We had uncovered information from back in the 1990s into 2000 about the selling of body parts on the part of Planned Parenthood and others in the abortion industry. Harris is best friends with them. Instead of looking into the laws that they broke, she prosecuted the pro-lifers that exposed it. That's the kind of woman. Oh, by the way, if you vote for Biden, you're voting for President Kamala Harris. You know that, right? That's what you're doing. I mean, some people who might think, oh, well, Biden, he doesn't seem to be as extreme as these other ones. What difference does that make? It's the same administration. And Harris will take over for Biden. Most people don't believe that he'll finish a first term. I mean, how can he endure? Yeah, the amazing thing about President Trump, I talked to you about the rally he did today, the 3 rallies he did yesterday, the 3 rallies he's going to do tomorrow. He's campaigning actively for president and at the same time carrying out the duties of the office of President of the United States. It's just amazing. So God is with him. Supreme Court. 24 hours from now, we could have Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Let me say that again. 24 hours from now, we could have Justice Amy Coney Barrett officially a member of the Supreme Court. Today, the Senate took another step, actually ahead of schedule. This is actually unfolding sooner than we had anticipated, because if you listen to me each day, you know that I have traced out what the projected schedule of this whole process was going to be. And we're actually ahead of schedule. We knew so far it's gone just as we expected. The hearings finished on the 15th, the vote delayed for 1 week. That was a Democrat decision. Could have been done that day, but the vote out of a committee coming on the 22nd. And then now, once it gets voted, I see the way this works is, well, let me use the board because this visually helps us to understand this. So the Senate Judiciary Committee, God bless Senator Lindsey Graham. He's running in South Carolina. All you folks in South Carolina, you're going to get him in, right? You're going to get him reelected. He's a great senator. We need him in there. We need to expand like we did in the midterms, expand that Republican majority in the U.S. Senate. And we've got to take back the House too, but those are other questions. So the Senate takes care by the Constitution. They're charged with advice and consent, as it's called. Constitution, advice and consent. Okay. Judges, by the way, the judicial branch of the government is Article 3 of the Constitution. Article 1 is the Congress making the laws. Article 2, the President, the executive branch. Article 3 is about the courts, and the Senate has a role, advice and consent, about the nominees that the President puts on the courts. And just as a review, of course, the federal courts, are consisting of the Supreme Court at the top. By the way, that's the only court that's mentioned in the Constitution. There are all these other courts. The Constitution simply says Congress may create additional courts as it sees fit. So it's under the jurisdiction of the Congress to create other courts. So they have created the appellate courts, also called the circuit courts of appeals, 13 circuits. And then you have the district courts, many more of those throughout the states. District courts. Now, these are all federal courts. Then you've got your state court system. That's separate. Each state, just like each state has its own chief executive, the governor, its own legislature, each state has its own court system. So you'll have the Supreme Court of Kansas and all the other states, and all the lower courts within the state court system. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the federal courts. And so the president nominates, the Senate confirms all these different courts. And we're going to refer to this distinction in a little bit. So I just wanted to put it up there so when we refer to it later, it's clear. So for the Supreme Court, it's the Judiciary Committee of the Senate that handles this. And what they have to do, which they've already done, is they have to have the hearings for the nominee. So, basically a 4-day process, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday it happened on the, the 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th of this month. So just 2 weeks ago, they had the hearings. They went smoothly. They also had individual meetings of Judge Barrett with the senators. The senators are free to meet with her, to ask her whatever questions they want. And then they had various written documents that they examined and written questions that they sent. So all that has taken place. Then the Judiciary Committee votes. That's a critical moment. Now, because the Republicans have the majority in the Senate, therefore they have the majority on the committees. Here's the interesting thing that happened, what the vote is that they have to take is, here's the question they have to answer. Do we, and I'm simplifying this, of course, in layman's terms, send this nomination to the full Senate? Yes or no? It's only the committee members that vote on that. Do we send this nomination to the full Senate? They did this the other day. Republicans are in the majority. So even if only the Republicans vote, if they all approve, it gets approved. The Democrats, they didn't show up. They boycotted the vote. They didn't show up to carry out their constitutional duty. But again, since the Republicans have the majority on the committee, they were able to do it anyway. So they did it. And they voted it out of committee, sent it to the full. By the way, any kind of Biden supporters that are on here, any kind of Democrats that are watching us, maybe they went to visit. Did they go to visit with you guys? Or can you explain? Is that mature? I'll tell you what they did afterwards, because I want to bring something up. You may have seen what they did exactly, but they didn't show up to cast the vote. Okay, good for them. Look, can you find anybody more qualified than Amy Coney Barrett? I don't think so. Not only qualified, but the temperament that she has, cool and calm and collected and intelligent. I mean, what other kind of person do you want on the Supreme Court? And they don't deny this, except that they say, well, she's not qualified because her positions are too extreme. But that goes into what I want to point out in a moment, because, hey, the Supreme Court is not supposed to be setting policy. You want policy to move in a certain direction, go to the Congress. I remember being with Justice Scalia when he was alive. We had a group come in, he talked to our group. And this question came up about the court changing things, and he gets up and he points out the window. He says, "Listen, you want things changed in public policy? Go to that building across the street, the Congress, right? Those are the people we elect to write our laws, and we can lobby them. We can't lobby the Supreme Court justices, but we can lobby the members of Congress. That's what it exists for. You know, the original Supreme Court was in the basement of the Congress. Did you know that? Now it's this big towering building across the street from the Congress, but the original Supreme Court was in the basement of the Congress. Showing the only power that the judicial branch has and is supposed to have. They don't have enforcement capability. They can't call in the federal guard or anything like that. They have the power of judgment. That's it. Power of judgment. Resolve a case, resolve a controversy, apply a law, apply the Constitution to a situation. Power of judgment. They were in the basement, showing that, hey, they're answerable to the Congress in the sense that it is our elected representatives, who are answerable in turn to us, that make the laws, not the unelected judges. Okay, and this is exactly what Amy Coney Barrett was emphasizing time and time again. But back to the process. This has all happened now. So now what happens next? The nomination, the question of the nomination, has been referred to the full Senate. Now, the Senate is a very, very interesting body. It's got a lot of rules. Some of them are rather arcane. Some of them are rather complex to understand. But the bottom line is that the Senate debates, and basically it can debate as long as they want. Now, if you're ever going to get everything done, however, you have to stop at a certain point debating a certain question, move on to decide it yes or no, so you can go on with the other business of the country, right? So the Senate debates, but then at a certain point, they have to say, okay, let's limit how much more time we're going to give to this debate. Let's set ourselves a hard deadline. See, when they start debating, they don't have a hard deadline. But at a certain point, the senators say, okay, we've had enough back and forth, we've had enough questions, so let's set a limit now to the time. We'll debate for, another little while, but then we're going to have a final vote. Now, in order to limit the time of debate, and this is where we have to just follow this carefully, in order to limit the time of debate, they have to have a vote. And that is called a cloture vote. Now, there's something very interesting about this. That is called a cloture vote. And the concept of a cloture vote is critical to understand how the Senate works, and critical, therefore, to understand the importance of our elections when we elect our U.S. senators. Because a cloture vote says, okay, we're going to limit the amount of time left for this debate, and then we're going to decide the question, straight up or down vote. Because any one senator of either party can just go on and on and on. That's called a filibuster, right? They want to go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Maybe they're not even, interested in resolving the question. They just don't like the issue, and so they want to try to put off a vote on it forever. But you can't do business that way. So that's why there's cloture vote. Now, here's a key and interesting point of Senate history and court history. And let's put this in red, and let's put it up here. How many votes? Now, if you follow this, this is a key to understanding our federal government. How many votes are needed for cloture? And the answer is, it depends on whether you're talking about a vote regarding a law or whether you're talking about a vote regarding the confirmation of a judge. Those are two different things that the Senate does, right? They do some other things too. But basically, either they're making law or they're putting judges on the courts. And the interest, okay, so if it's a law, which this is not, but if it's a law, it requires 60 votes. And that's the reason why, even when we had for a time, at the beginning of President Trump's first term, we had a majority of pro-life Republicans in the House and in the Senate, and of course a pro-life Republican president. That's why even under those circumstances, sometimes we can't get our pro-life bills passed. For example, end this funding of Planned Parenthood once and for all. Why? Because even with the Democrats, who are all pro-abortion, sometimes with 1.5 or 2 exceptions, even though they're in the minority in the Senate, they still are, and they were then, the minority party, see, the minority party only needs 41. You don't need 50, you need 41 to stop something in its tracks. Because unless the other side has 60 votes to move forward, for example, a law that would defund Planned Parenthood, unless you have 60 votes, the other side can stop it. So it's not well informed. Sometimes even when pro-life people, even sometimes some pro-life leaders sometimes, it's not well informed to say, oh, look, it doesn't matter if the Republicans control the Congress because after all, they were in charge, and why didn't they get it done? Well, being in the majority is not enough. That's why, according to the rules of the Senate, the rules for cloture, you can't get to the point where a law is finalized and approved so that it can be sent to the desk of the president to sign. The president can't make law by himself. He has to ask the Congress to send him a bill. They can't send him a bill unless the House and the Senate agree on the bill. You're not going to send him 2 different bills and say, here, Mr. President, choose between the 2. That's not how it works. The Congress has to work out the differences and send him one clean bill. And either he signs it or he vetoes it. But the point is they can't send it to him in the first place unless they agree, and they can't agree if they can't get it passed in the Senate. And you can't get it passed in the Senate if the minority is objecting to it, and you don't have 60 votes to overcome that objection. That's called the filibuster. When the minority party says, oh, well, we're not going to have a vote because we don't like this bill. Okay, that's law. But what happens when it comes to judges? The answer of how many votes are needed for cloture when it comes to judges is a simple majority, 51. Now, if the Senate is split, there's an even number of people in the Senate. There's an odd number of people in the House, right? 435. There's an even number of people in the Senate, 100. So what if you have to? What if it splits down the middle? What if you have a 50-50? Because a lot of votes are really split down. What if you have a 50-50 vote? The answer to that, right? The vice president is the tiebreaker. He's called the president of the Senate. One of the titles of the vice president of the United States is the president of the Senate. He can step in, and Vice President Pence has had to do this. He has to step in and cast the deciding vote. But for judges, it's 51. Now, that didn't always used to be the case. And here's a little bit of history, too. The judges also used to be 60 in order to get a cloture vote. But in 2013, the Democrats under Harry Reid, remember Senator Harry Reid? Okay, they had the majority in the Senate. And they said, you know what, we're going to change the rule because it's okay for the Senate to change this rule. And so the Dems said, you know what, for judges, now this is where we go back to the 3 levels of the courts, right? Supreme, appeals, and district. The Democrats changed the rule and moved it from 60 to 51 for cloture, not for the Supreme Court, but for these lower courts. Because they, at that time, were trying to get some of President Obama's appointees confirmed, And the Republicans were blocking the way because they said, we don't like these judges. So they said, okay, we're going to change the rules. Perfectly legitimate. In fact, I'm glad they did, because then that paved the way then for President Trump to get a whole bunch of judges confirmed for the district and the appellate courts. And Obama left him a lot of vacancies. So they changed it, but only if they left the Supreme Court alone. The Supreme Court process would still have required 60 votes for cloture to break the filibuster until 2017. So this is very recent. President Trump was president, and he appointed Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. And at that time, the Republican Senate did what the Democrat Senate had done 4 years earlier, and they changed the rule so that Supreme Court judges no longer required 60 votes, but merely 51. And that's the situation we have right now. So today, just a few hours ago, this is right, talk about right up to the minute news. Today, the cloture vote was held in the Senate. And there were 51 yes votes. 48 no. 1 absent. Guess who was absent from the Senate today? One guess. Kamala Harris was absent. She's out campaigning. She wants to be president. Remember, she's campaigning for president. I have no doubt about that. Anybody out there that thinks they're going to vote for Biden? Oh, he's more moderate. First of all, no, he's not. Secondly, it's not going to be him pulling the strings. It's going to be the most liberal member of the Senate. The most liberal member of the Senate. Kamala Harris. That's by GovTrack. Go to GovTrack. It's a website, govtrack.org. They have an ideological score based on your votes, your sponsorships and co-sponsorships of legislation that analyze the ideological stance of a senator. She's to the left of Bernie Sanders, according to GovTrack. So in any case, when President Trump says at his rallies, she's the most liberal, that's not just political rhetoric. That's an objective evaluation by a non-political group. So in any case, this was the vote today. Now, the Republicans, you'll recall, have 53 now in the Senate. And this was the great benefit of the 2018 midterm elections, where we gained 2 seats. Now, the importance of gaining 2 seats, and the Justice Brett Kavanaugh hearings helped with this, right? Because people got fed up with what the Democrats did with that circus, that disgraceful performance that they did under the process for Brett Kavanaugh. So we gained 2 seats in the Senate. The importance of that is that we have 2 senators who tend sometimes to be a little wishy-washy on pro-life votes and sometimes on judges. Sometimes, not all the time. They've been overall pretty good with President Trump's judges. But I'm talking about Senator Susan Collins from Maine and Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. And lo and behold, the reason why the yes votes today, which, by the way, were all Republican, no Democrat voted in favor of advancing this nomination. Again, that's weird. It's like, you're going to find me someone more qualified? You're going to find me someone more intelligent? You're going to find me someone more even-tempered? That's what qualifications for the courts mean. Can you, in an even-tempered, objective, and informed way, apply the laws and the Constitution to a case or controversy that comes before the court? You're going to find me someone, any of those Democrats going to find us someone more qualified than Amy Coney Barrett? This is all ideological. This is all political. But the point is, 51, it was 53 minus Murkowski and Collins. And 48, all the Dems, there's 2 independents in there, Bernie Sanders being one of them. And that's how it played out today. So what this means is, the Senate now has said, okay, we are moving forward to the final vote. We're going to give ourselves 30 hours of debate. And what that means is, by about 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, debate stops and the final vote is held. We could have, that's why I started this all off by saying that within 24 hours we might have a Justice Amy Coney Barrett. I don't say might because she doesn't have the votes. She does. Because even Senator Murkowski, who did not vote today to advance the process, to invoke cloture, nevertheless has indicated that she will vote for the final confirmation. So we've got the votes to confirm her. The reason we just are a little bit still in a maybe mode is simply that the Senate, again, has a lot of arcane rules and a lot of, gives a lot of power to individual senators that might want to slow things down. So there could still be something that happens but all it'll do, friends, rest assured, is just maybe pull it out for another day or so. They can use believe me, the Democrats will use any kind of delay tactics that are at their disposal. And the better you know the rules of the Senate, the more you can play games like this. But the bottom line is we will see her confirmed, if not tomorrow night, then within the next couple of days. Then there's a private swearing-in ceremony. She starts work immediately, and then there'll be a more public process after that. Okay, so. But there is a deadline, as one of you was asking, a deadline. So there's a deadline for how many hours of debate. That kicks in. That's why the 7:30 tomorrow night kicks in as a deadline. But again, like I say, the number of hours that you leave up for debate is one thing. But then again, Senate rules and so forth, sometimes there's other little delay tactics they can use. But this will come to a vote. She will be confirmed. And wow, what a legacy. A lot of presidents, in fact, I'm going to show you a special web page now. We're going to look at some of the past Supreme Court confirmations. Let's take a look, in fact, at that web page. Let's scroll down here. These are confirmation votes for Supreme Court justices from 1967 to 2017. They're arranged in reverse chronological order. And I just wanted to show you this to show you the ideological balance, because the court this has become a political process. And notice, for example, what you see here is the following. Let's scroll down just a little bit more. On the left, and the yellow shading, by the way, are the current justices on the court. On the left, you see except for Ginsburg, of course, who has passed away, of course, as we know. But on the left, you see the names of the justices. Now, the blue lines, okay, are the yes votes. If the blue line goes past the middle line, that means they were confirmed. But it shows you by exactly how much. So remember, there's 100 senators. So this is showing you the breakdown. The numbers won't always add up to 100 because some senators may have been missing or didn't vote for some reason. So Brett Kavanaugh, look how evenly divided. I mean, he just made it, 50 to 48. It's a majority of those voting, by the way, that are required. So even if, one of the things that Democrats could try to pull is let's not show up. Let's not even show up. Don't be surprised if they don't even show up. But still, you could get the person confirmed. First of all, they have an absolute majority, but second, it's a majority of those voting. So 50, Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed. Neil Gorsuch was also very close by a handful more, 54 to 45. Now, Justice Barrett, she will be in between those two, I would predict. The final outcome of the vote will be somewhere in between the numbers we see there for Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, unless a couple of Democrats, and I guess it's not outside the realm of possibility that a couple of Democrats might decide to vote yes. But look how it's been so evenly divided. Now, Kagan, well, okay, she did a whole lot better, but still, 68 to 37. Sotomayor, of course, those were the two Obama justices, 68 to 31. Okay. Alito, he was still, 58 to 42. Okay. Now, John Roberts had a healthy majority. Look at Breyer and Ginsburg, for goodness sake. They almost had everybody. Ginsburg, 96 to 3. Now, everybody knew. See, here's the interesting thing. Everybody knew where she was ideologically. They knew full well, the Republicans knew how far to the left she was. But look what they did back there in 1993. They voted for her. That was an example of senators focusing on the qualifications of the nominee, not the ideological leanings or personal or political opinions of the nominee. You see the difference? The Republicans did that very well with Ginsburg and with Breyer. A lot of the Democrats did with Roberts. But then look, you go back one further before Ginsburg, Clarence Thomas, you remember what happened with that. See, now you notice I want to point out too, you have, look at the ones in the middle. Clarence Thomas, very close vote, because you remember the whole Anita Hill sexual impropriety accusations, and that turned into a circus. And that peeled off a lot of votes, but he still made it by 52 votes. Before him, a couple of Souter and Kennedy sailed through. But Robert Bork, that's where we even have got a new word in the dictionary, when you bork somebody. And by the way, you know who presided over these circuses, with Robert Bork being just, again, the same thing we saw with Thomas, the same thing we saw with Kavanaugh, just smearing a person's reputation with lies and all kinds of other complaints, to the point where you make them unconfirmable. And that's what they did to again, Judge Bork was a highly qualified judge, would have been great on the Supreme Court. But they did this attack against him that was absolutely ridiculous. And there was a certain senator on the Judiciary Committee heading things up. He's presided over the Clarence Thomas hearings. He was there also for the Robert Bork hearings. You know who that senator was? He was a senator by the name of Joe Biden. And he was the one that presided over these circuses of not a process fairly based on examining the qualifications, but based on objecting to the ideological positions. All right, so we can, let's go away from that chart. What we have seen with Judge Barrett, Senator Feinstein, Democrat from California, Judge Barrett's nomination poses a direct threat to members of the LGBT community. Well, excuse me, Senator Feinstein, but this is not a vote on LGBT issues. This is a vote on the qualifications of the nominee. Come on, you know better than that. Justice confirming Amy Coney Barrett, another Democrat Senator, Blumenthal, said, actively opposes the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And this would be devastating for millions of Americans. And this is what the Democrats did. I told you I was going to mention what they did when they boycotted the Senate vote to vote her out of committee. They put pictures on their empty chairs of people who they felt would be harmed with their health care if the Obamacare went away. Now look, friends, we're not saying health care is not important. We're not even saying that the Supreme Court might not act on this. They have a case that this has to be decided about the Affordable Care Act. But you're not supposed to be voting on a judge, on a justice, confirming a justice, based on these issue positions. That's why Justice Ginsburg, in her confirmation process, which, by the way, wasn't any longer than the one for now, what was shortly to be Justice Barrett. Ginsburg was the whole process took the same amount of time. Justice John Paul Stevens, it took 19 days. Half the time. 19 days. And Schumer gets up there, Democrat minority leader in the Senate, and he says, the Republicans have defiled the Senate. They have defiled the Senate by rushing through this process. No, they haven't. And he knows it. See, this is the insincerity, the theater these people put on, the theater. Here we go with another one of those comments, church and government should not mix. They do mix, Estella, they do mix. It's called morality. We're not supposed to speak up when people do something wrong. The government comes and wants to take your rights away. You don't want the church speaking up for you? Come on. But the point is here, look, Doris is saying the Democrats had those pictures up as props. It didn't work. That's right. You're right. It didn't work. They look like fools. They look like little children, complaining and crying. But the point is that it's not supposed to be issue-based. And Justice Ginsburg, as well as now soon to be Justice Barrett, made it clear when they were answering various questions during their hearings. They made it very clear when they were asked what their position would be on a certain issue or how they might rule on a certain question that might come before the court, they said it is not appropriate for me to answer that question. I will decide my rulings based on what the case in controversy is, what the arguments are, what the precise nature of the question is. I can't speak in advance of a decision I might make. It is not appropriate, in other words, for a judge who wears black. You know why they wear black, right? It's neither red nor blue. They're not supposed to be ideologically identified with a particular position or party or platform. It's black. Neutrality. Kind of an ideal, right? But we got to strive for it. This is why we got to try to find the right kind of judges. President Trump has put almost 300 judges on the court. By the end of his term, it'll be 300. And he's looking for, these are the kind of judges he's looking for, who are going to wear black and it's going to mean something. They got to be above their own opinion. They're not doing the kind of work that a member of Congress does. A member of Congress, you campaign. You gotta ask. See, here's the difference. You have to ask the person who's running for House of Representatives, person who's running for Senate, you have to ask them their position on the issues. And they should tell you. But the judge, then it reverses itself. You're not supposed to ask them because it's not supposed to matter what their position is. It's not supposed to matter. Now, even some people on the right and some people within the pro-life movement, the conservative movement, sometimes are, sort of the mind that, hey, we ought to have them come right out and say they're pro-life. Well, the way you see that they're pro-life is by getting to know them as a person. We had a nice interview here with our friend and colleague, I respect him very much, Carter Sneed, who is a colleague and friend for many years of Amy Coney Barrett and her family. So he was on with us. I hope you saw that interview. We'll play it again to discuss her and her spirituality and her temperament and just what a wonderful and knowledgeable person she is. And you get to know, you know where they stand by knowing them. And also you can read the decisions. The decisions that they have written or co-written are public knowledge. So that's how you investigate where they stand on these issues. Not to say, okay, well, let's make this political and let's just put in there somebody who's going to rule the way that we're supposed to rule, that we want them to rule on certain issues. That's not the way the courts are supposed to work. You want to change something in public policy, change it through the law. You want to change something in public policy, change it through that process, even to the point of amending the Constitution. Fine, amend the Constitution. But don't fool around with the independence of the courts. That is key. All right, so good lesson. Did you enjoy that? Was it helpful? I enjoy talking about these things, and I know that you appreciate. We put on our thinking caps for a little while. We go to the board, and we get some of this stuff going. And let me just take a few additional questions. I've been looking here at the comments, and I appreciate all of you doing that or leaving your comments. Christine is asking, what time, Father, are you doing the rosary every day? I would like to join if I can. I hope you can, Christine. It's at 3 o'clock Eastern time each day. The rosary followed by the chaplet of Divine Mercy, and the intention will be for the elections every morning at 10 o'clock. The Mass, will be having the Mass for the elections. Tomorrow we're going to do the Mass of the Holy Spirit, and we're going to focus on the Senate, the U.S. Senate, as our intention for prayer. We have to elect more senators on the pro-life Republican side, so that'll be tomorrow morning. And thank you for all these good comments here. And Elizabeth, thank you for that. You teach government. I would love to learn from you too. You said, I wish I could be a guest speaker. You know what? I would be willing to see if we could arrange that. If it's possible on your end, you have a willing person on this end, feel free to be in touch with me. Email me here at Priests for Life, or direct message me, or you can email me at our main mailbox, mail@priestsforlife.org, mail@priestsforlife.org. So Deborah's saying something good here. So do you really want the Democrats and big government in control of your health care? Our nation has desensitized the value of human life with universal health care approval denied. By and by, you cost us too much money, etc. Trump and Pence are the only president and VP who took a stance with the pro-life movement to save our unborn babies. Harris and Biden, you're right, Deborah, believe in late-term pro-abortion, death of our unborn by choice. Do you really want them to be champions of your health care? Trump, Pence, 2020. Deborah, great comment. And indeed, abortion. See, this is where we have to understand the thinking of the Democrats. Abortion for them actually is a part of health care. I mean, that's just turns health care upside down, turns medicine upside down. Abortion is not medicine. Think about it, friends. Medicine is supposed to help the body to do what it's supposed to do, but is having trouble doing. Abortion is just the opposite. The body is pregnant body. The baby is being nurtured. The body is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, medical problems aside. But the vast majority of abortions have nothing to do with medical problems. So the body is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. And you go in and you stop it. How is that medicine? It's like going and saying, doctor, I would like my arm amputated. Well, is it gangrenous? Is it infected? Why? No, doctor, just my choice. I would like to have my arm amputated. Doctor, I would like my gallbladder taken out. Oh, well, you're having a gallbladder? You have gallbladder attack? I would just like it taken out. Doctor, I would just like, I think I look better. I want to look cool. I think I look more cool with one ear instead of two. Could you please remove my ear? Would anybody call that medicine? I mean, yeah, it's surgery, sure. Yeah, there's a doctor involved, of course. But do you call it medicine if somebody just goes on there and says, take off my ear, take off my arm? Is there anything wrong with it? No, nothing wrong with it. In other words, there always has to be a medical indication. They call it indication. There has to be a medical indication. Let's take Kathy's question. We'll answer that question. There has to be a medical indication for a medical procedure. There's got to be some medical benefit. There's no medical benefit to abortion. As a matter of fact, the studies are piled this high saying it does the opposite. It hurts. You hurt your baby, you hurt yourself. There's no such thing as an abortion that doesn't harm the mother. It always harms the mother. And that could be the topic and will be the topic of some other programs. Like Chris is saying, my friend Chris Slattery, do no harm is the first rule of medicine. So abortion isn't even medicine. But these Democrats think it's health care and they want us to pay for it too. When the fetus dies in the womb, Kathy is asking, is it considered abortion? The word abortion is actually used, depending on the specific definition and context, in a number of ways. Okay, so there's a number of definitions. We talk sometimes, we all know the difference between abortion and miscarriage, right? So if a baby dies naturally and the body expels that child by natural miscarriage, sometimes a term spontaneous abortion, right, is used to describe it, but it has nothing to do with the moral question of abortion that we discuss in the pro-life movement and in this ministry. So no, what we're talking, that would not be, if a baby dies in the womb naturally, or unnaturally, maybe there's an accident or something happens, pregnant woman is attacked, unfortunately, you know what the biggest cause of death is among pregnant women? Homicide. And it's ironic, the existence of the quote-unquote choice, the option of legal abortion, ends up putting pregnant women in a situation where they're more vulnerable to being pressured, forced, or punished, including physically, if they don't take that quote-unquote choice. But in any case, no, Kathy, it's not morally an abortion to remove then the deceased child. And sometimes actually the same technique has to be used to remove the child, the same physical technique as is used in an abortion. So as Robin is saying, yes, miscarriage, the baby can come out normally. Abortions are by instruments, absolutely right, sometimes by medications. But sometimes also, depending on the stage of pregnancy that we're talking about and what exactly is happening in the body and the cause of death, sometimes the issue is that the baby who has died does need to be removed. And if that baby is removed with instruments, that's still not an abortion, morally speaking, because the difference is a very big difference. You're not killing the child. That's the difference. You're not killing the child. And by the way, therefore, when we speak about, and this is the last point, I'm going to keep you up too late here, when we hear about medical students being trained or being forced to be trained in abortions, the training is not so much the mechanical procedure. Because if you're getting basic training in obstetrics, gynecology, you're getting basic training, I mean, you know how to remove a baby who died naturally. You're not committing anything wrong by taking the baby out of the body if the baby already died. But the mechanics are going to be very, very similar, if not in some cases identical. What's the big difference? Killing a person. That's the big boundary. That's the big difference. The difference between removing a child who has died and actually killing the baby. So when we hear about quote-unquote training of medical students on abortion, training of doctors on abortion, we're really talking about warping their conscience, desensitizing their conscience towards taking a human life. And Linda is right. The pill, it's a form of early abortion, right? I mean, there's all kinds of different drugs and different effects, but a lot of these drugs that are considered birth control are actually causing early abortions. They don't need instruments because the baby is so small. The medical effect of these drugs is actually killing the baby, sometimes before we even know there's a baby there. And that's why the numbers of actual abortions are really always much higher than the numbers that we see, which are abortions that we know about. Friends, thank you. I'm going to give you a blessing, and we'll talk to you again in the morning. May the Lord bless all of you, answer all your prayers, give you his protection and peace, bless your families, bless your work, make you strong defenders of life and of America in this election. May Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. Thank you again for your time tonight, and we'll talk to you in the morning.
Hello, I'm Evangelist Alveda King. Day by day, my work with Priests for Life and Father Frank Pavone provides me with many opportunities to speak up for the unborn, whether on television and radio or in conferences with pastors or with government leaders. In order to accomplish all this work, we rely on the donations of individuals like you who believe in this cause and want to help us save lives. May I ask you to support us generously? Go today to prolifegift.org and give as generous a gift as you can. I appreciate it personally and will pray for you each day.
I think we have Richard Lee, we have Jim Garlow, and we have Father Frank Pavone. Someplace they were in the audience, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Follow him, Father Frank Pavone, Fr. Frank Pavone on Twitter. He is the National Director of Priests for Life. Please go to priestsforlife.org.